Hello, everybody, and welcome to Leadership Talks. I reciprocate the warmth and love that you are giving to this talk series. I Rupam Shah, and I'm back with another luminary, and this time with someone who has done exemplary work for the people with disabilities. A former civil servant, basketball coach, a documentary film producer, and activist championing the cause of creating a truly inclusive society. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming Dr. Vikram Dutt. Before we enter into a conversation with him, let's have a look at his accomplishments and achievements. Dr. Vikram Dutt has been a member, Core Committee of Experts, Rehabilitation Council with Government of India. With a doctorate degree in social work and master's in political science, he has served as a principal in Delhi Metropolitan Education. He has been a member secretary of an Indo-US subcommittee on spinal research and has also been an editor of Boston University Academic Journal, SARC Academic Journal, and also Indian Journal of Disability and Rehabilitation. He is one of the pioneers of inclusion in education and has worked with Government of India on Inclusion Bill and Juvenile Justice Act. He was a member of the team which established the Indian Spinal Injuries Center, New Delhi. He designed the Udyan Shalini Fellowship Program, which has touched around 4,500 girls from rural areas and economically backward sections, many of whom are now highly placed professionals. He has produced over 50 documentaries, of which 4 were screened at Cannes Film Festival. He has coached the Delhi Junior Women's Basketball team. He is a motivational speaker and has conducted workshops across the country and internationally over 30 years, currently working extensively with schools on cognitive skills development. He has been felicitated with various prestigious awards like Man of the Year and Man of the Decade Award from USA, 500 Intellectuals to Influence Contemporary Thought, Family Values Award, felicitation from British House of Lords, Lifetime Achievement Award from Italy, and Gaurav Samman Award, India. He often quotes, "The life that we lead is God's gift to us. How we lead life is our gift back to God." Hello, sir, and welcome to this talk series. I see that your life is full of varied fields where you have worked into. So I am looking forward to a lot of learning from this interview. So, sir, to begin with, I would like to start with what you did as a part of your education. You've done your doctorate in social work. So I just want to know that why did you think about doing research in social work? What was the inspiration behind, sir?
First of all, Rupam, I'm very happy to be here. And you're doing a great job.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so let me get straight to the answer why I did social work. All my life, I actually wanted to be a lawyer and then become a judge because I thought that is the best way in which we can bring justice to people. However, fate willed otherwise, and I decided that I no longer wanted to be a judge because after the Allahabad judgment of Jagmohan Sinha, the then Prime Minister broke the hallowed tradition of the senior most judge becoming Chief Justice and did out of turn promotions. So though I was ready to start practicing, I said, "Mujhe karna hi nahi hai. I'm practicing only to become a judge." And soon thereafter, unfortunately, I suffered a grievous injury. I got hepatitis, which is jaundice, and somehow doctors were not able to control it, and I went into a coma and was not able to get out of it. Doctors declared me dead. This was on the 11th of August, 9 p.m., 1976. So I was just a youngster, 24 years old. And then by grace of God and some new medicines which had come out, I came back to life after 5 hours. But ever since, health became very fragile. And then I decided कि छोड़ो यार, law वो क्या करना. I have become a person with a disability. I got a spinal injury also as a result of some of the mistreatment. And so I said, let me get into social work. And that's how I always had a desire to get into social work. My father was an orphan, and there was an incident when we were 14 years old, when I was 14 years old. We were holidaying, and my mother had made some excellent food. And then we were all complimenting her. And I turned to my dad and said, when you were a kid, आपको भूख नहीं लगती थी? So he said, of course, भूख लगती थी. So I said, what did you do? We were talking in Bengali. So he said, little child, my father was an orphan, he used to work as a servant in a home. He said, little छोटा बच्चा क्या करेगा? I used to tie my dhoti tight. That is one of the most important incidents in my life. So I got into social work. So I've been involved with orphanages. And then after my injury, I got involved with disability work. And then I was on an assignment in USA. So all my evenings used to be free. So I enrolled for a PhD and completed a PhD
Okay.
in social work.
Basically, the turning point happened when this spinal injury was there. Otherwise, you wanted to be a judge, and but then later on, because of this illness which happened, and you thought that okay, it should be more towards working for the society or doing more of social work.
For society, तो always था, but for persons with disability.
Okay.
Very specifically.
Correct.
And there were two incidents then. One was that when I went to the institutions run by the government that now have become spinal injured, मैं क्या कर सकता हूँ? I found that they were bereft of ideas.
Okay.
They had no vision what a person can do. So I decided I should do something. And the second is, I had started meditating when I was 18 years old.
Okay.
And when I got the injury, I was 24. So I was still meditating. So one day in my meditation, I started fighting with God that I have not done anything to anybody. Why have you made me a cripple? At that time, I couldn't walk. I couldn't even go to the toilet. Everything was with assistance. And at that time in my meditation, I got a clear answer. My first language is English, but my answer was in Hindi. And the answer was, Abhi Murak, tera maine margdarshan kar diya.
Yeah.
So that was it.
Sir, there has to be always something, which propels a person to do something great. And probably that was one of the incident in your life which pushed you towards making so much of a difference into the lives of so many others. Sir, your major body of work, as you said, is in disabilities. It's for the children in disabilities. And in fact, you've been a pioneer into working towards creating an inclusive society. You've worked with Government of India on the inclusion bill. So what do you think are your milestones in this particular field? What all things you feel that are the ones, yes, you feel really satisfied?
The biggest satisfaction, Rupam, is that people with disabilities today have a place in life. And the laws support it. There are jobs for them. And now the Election Commission even has voting specially suited for people with disability. ताकि wheelchairs आ सकें, people who are blind, there are braille markings. So this is a very great shift. When I started this work 30, 40, 50 years ago, even my close friends, some of whom went into the IAS and into business, used to tell me, Vikram, हमारे यहाँ एबल बॉडीड के लिए तो नौकरियां नहीं है, हॉस्पिटल्स नहीं है, अपॉर्चुनिटीज नहीं है, तो विकलांगों की क्या बात करते हैं? टुडे द सेम पीपल से, यार you were correct, we made an error, and have become the greatest supporters. Most of them became secretaries to Government of India. Some became senior judges, and they supported throughout. They became policy makers, and they supported throughout. So the shift in understanding, the shift in approach, the shift in attitude,
Yeah.
this is the greatest thing.
Hmm.
In fact, I was very surprised the other day. 3 days ago, I got a telephone call that, sir, in the lockdown, what facilities have you got as a person with disability? So I told them that, look, all my life, I have never taken a disability certificate, nor have I taken any concession due to disability. तो मेरे को कोई फर्क ही नहीं पड़ता है. So, see, this is the concern that today people are actually making the laws. अभी ये जो lockdown में भी there are provisions. People with disabilities, people, senior citizens, those who live alone, उनके लिए भी facilities हैं. 30 साल पहले ये सोच भी नहीं सकते थे.
Correct.
50 साल पहले तो जहन में ही नहीं था. Today it is an everyday incident.
Correct.
This is the greatest satisfaction.
Yeah. So you feel that everything now, that whatever actions are being taken by the government or the other organizations, they do keep the people with disabilities in mind, and they make the provisions according to that. So that kind of a sensitivity has developed.
100% it has.
All right.
But
sir,
then we need to develop more. Like even today, a lady cannot go out into the street and feel safe. So because the men do not have a good point of view towards women. Similarly, there are pockets of people who says ये विकलांग है, भाड़ में जाए. For instance, if you go to the ISKCON Mandir in Delhi, people don't know it, but we lobbied with them that if I'm on a wheelchair, or if I'm old and I cannot walk, or if I'm a pregnant lady, advanced pregnancy, I also want to pay obeisance to the Lord. So the Delhi ISKCON Mandir, actually Rupam, from the backside has a road that goes up.
Okay.
If you come from the ground level, you may have to go 100 steps,
Okay.
but they have an accessible entrance.
Okay.
So most of our temples are not accessible. That is the next thing that we have to work at.
Okay. Yeah. So making accessibility for the disabled, like ramps and other things, should be constructed at various places.
And when we talk about disability, we don't only talk about disabled. Talk about the senior citizens. Talk about mothers who are pregnant. They have as much right to go and pray as you and I.
Right.
But the steps debar them from praying.
Absolutely. Yes. Right. Sir, you've worked quite a lot in this field of cognitive skills development for the intellectually delayed students, and you're working with a lot of schools in this area. So, sir, what do you think are some of the things which the educationists, in fact, all the educationists should know regarding this?
The next major thing that's going to happen, and now because of coronavirus, it has started, is that things are going to become digital. The more things become digital, the less of physical contact, the less of interpersonal contact. And cognitive development, as things stand today, as we understand things today, depends a lot on interaction with people, on behavior, on responses. The child first listens to the mother, then starts responding. The third thing that happens in interaction is then you start playing. You play with your mother first, you play with your caregiver. And with distancing, and now it is going to be part of everyday life.
Yeah.
So let's not look into the future, let's look into what has been happening. We discovered that there was not enough physical interaction, not enough. When there's no physical interaction, there's no intellectual interaction either. So the growth of the children was getting hampered. And when they do not play, when they do not converse. So that is reflected today in the rudeness and surliness of the younger generation. They are not. The other day I was at Habitat Center, and a gentleman older than me was approaching the lift. So I held the door for him, and he said thank you. And I also said, sir, it's my duty. And he said, आजकल के बच्चे तो करते नहीं है, वो तो धक्का मार के चले जाते. These are all reflections on cognitive skills development. Therefore, in some schools, we started cognitive skills training, where we train them on all our various cognitive skills. And this is done in a very simple manner. There are tasks which are assigned. These are abstract things. When you talk about cognitive skills, it's abstract. But training in it is not abstract. It's very particular. So there are about 10 different cognitive skills. We can talk about it later, but there are 10 cognitive skills by and large, 10, 11 that we work on.
Yeah.
Each skill has 10 to 12 tasks which are built in at level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the teacher or the instructor actually goes through an orientation course, and they have these tasks in front of them, which are partly with playthings, with learning material, and so the children execute them. So the teacher's judgment or discretion, we try to keep it out,
Okay.
so that it becomes more and more objective, and we have found very good success in it.
Okay. So it's like the children who are interacting with the material and the resources which you're providing, and left for the child to experiment on it, and then the development happens.
Absolutely.
Is there something more to this? Do we do something more in the cognitive skills development? And as you said, that the teacher's judgment has to be kept aside, so it should become more objective, and then it yields best results. So, sir, inside a class, I'm just taking you into a normal classroom where there are, say, 40 students, and in those 40 students, there are some children who need special attention, and there is one teacher inside the class. Now, what advice would you give to this teacher, and how should this teacher be dealing with some of these students who need special attention, sir?
That's a very good question. Essentially, what happens, teachers are stressed out. There are too many children, there are too many activities, and so if a child is misbehaving, say attention deficit disorder, or has got dyslexia and is not being able to follow what is being written on the board, the teacher tends to become impatient. I'm not blaming teachers, I'm stating a fact.
Yeah.
The equivalent is that if a child is getting feverish in the classroom, the teacher is not the doctor. The teacher sends that child to the doctor, and their child is attended to, and then adequate attention is given. Similarly, every school should have resource teachers, which is what we talk about. So such children should go for special attention or cognitive skills and other skills, and then rejoin the class. You may have noticed, Rupam, in your vast experience as a teacher and a principal and a trainer, that many of these hypersensitive children or hyperactive children, if you sit down with them, they are very creative.
Yes. Yeah.
So the resource teacher only uses that creativeness for the further development of the child.
Okay.
And let us also remember that the child is a great imitator. We learn by imitation. So if I'm hyperactive and the imitation I learn is my teacher scolding me, my mother scolding me, my father scolding me, then I am also going to become worse.
Correct.
I will not become tolerant.
Okay.
So cognitive skills training is an absolute must.
So, sir, which means that you're suggesting that for, like you said, that an equivalent of this is that if suppose the child is feverish, you will send the child to the doctor. In the similar manner, if you feel that there is a hyperactive student or there is some student who needs some kind of a special help, for some period of time, that child has to be sent to the special educator wherein those cognitive needs are dealt with, and then coming back to the class. So what you're trying to say is that the right intervention of the cognitive skills development has to be given, and also that such children, most of these children are very creative by nature, so we need to approach learning through their creative ways.
Their creative
and because
use
they're
their strength.
Yes, sir. And also because they're learning through imitation, so it's better that we present a right kind of behavior and right kind of things so that they imitate the right things instead of imitating our anger or our
irritation.
Correct, irritation. Yes.
See, the biggest problem today, and now that we are in the digital age, I have conducted many workshops with parents in schools, and they are the leading public schools, not only of India, but of Delhi, but of India. And my first question to parents is, आपको अपने बच्चे से सबसे बड़ी शिकायत क्या है? Invariably, वो मोबाइल नहीं छोड़ते. छोटा बच्चा भी मोबाइल मांगता है. Why will they not do it when the father himself is on the mobile all the time? When the mother is on the mobile all the time, child will also do it. So child are imitated. But I must place on record here one father I met in a school in Delhi, brilliant man. He was an insurance manager. He said, sir, you ask my 7-year-old child the capital of any country in the world, the national anthem of any country in the world, flags of any country, he'll tell you. Because what he had done is, he had disabled all the other programs in his own mobile. So every time his son wanted it, he would give it to him. All his son would see was capitals and national anthems. But we have to walk that extra mile. Are we walking it? Unknowingly, he did a great job in cognitive skills training.
Yes. So I think that is going to be a great help to the educationists. So what do you think that where are we at the moment? Can we truly claim that India is inclusive society? Has it got the status of being a truly inclusive society? Can we claim that?
Not at all. Because truly inclusive is not only people with disability, but is with socio-economic inclusion also.
Yeah.
So we are a far way away. So yes, a great start has been made.
Okay.
But we are still far away.
So, sir, what do you think are the things which needs to be done still so that we are able to reach there?
Number one, lot of teacher training. See, it is very easy to say, oh, civil society must change and this must change and that must change. But we all belong to a society which has been taught by our teachers. Even about 2 hours ago, a childhood friend called whose mother was one of our teachers. And we were recalling our old teachers. And we were talking about how some of our teachers encouraged us, which some teachers continue to do it. And some of the teachers thought that by humiliating us, they would make us feel that we need to achieve more. Now, this is something which, Rupam, I find is a disaster. Even today, I find there are teachers who are rude with children, who think that by humiliating him and that by humiliating them, they will stimulate them. Stimulation doesn't come from humiliation. It comes from encouragement. So when we change our teachers, when our teachers who are already doing such a brilliant job become even more brilliant, then we will see that the change towards an inclusive society will come. We have to have more teachers who are either from a poor background and are doing well in life, or who are children with people with disability. Then, the child will also get to see that they are like us. They are role models.
What you're saying is that first of all, it has to everything has to do with education. It's because it's from the education industry only that we have so many people, their mindsets are there, the attitudes are developed over there. And if at all we have in our education industry people coming from the lower economic background or people with disabilities, they are also there in the education sector, then there is a lot of good connection and role modeling which happens. So then we can say that yes, it's an inclusive society, and all the more I believe that the kind of inclusion which we are looking for would happen.
Absolutely. Which is why in educational leadership,
Hmm.
we keep looking at principals.
Hmm.
We don't look that much at younger teachers.
Hmm.
I'll give you a small example. When I was principal of a college,
Hmm.
I had a habit of calling the students to my room for a toffee or a biscuit, and my staff for a cup of tea, which I would make myself.
Hmm.
And the management was horrified.
Hmm.
They said, आप अपनी status नहीं समझते, आप अपने आप चाय बनाते हो, 4 चपरासी है. I did not allow a single chaprasi outside my room. And I think I had sent you a poster of what I had outside my room.
Hmm.
The students are my life and blood. They don't need to knock to enter.
Correct, correct.
Now, when this happens, so one day, one of the children who had been written off by my staff, but I realized that she was a traumatized child. So I looked after her. She eventually became a university rank holder. And one day I told her, tell your mom that Principal Saab wants to meet you for a cup of tea. The mom was terrified. She said, तुम झूठ बोल रहे हो. She says, नहीं mom, मैं झूठ नहीं बोल रही हूँ. नहीं, प्रिंसिपल चाय पिलाने तो बुलाते ही नहीं है. प्रिंसिपल तो पेरेंट्स को सिर्फ झाड़ने के लिए बुलाते हैं. So when she came into my room, she was terrified. And then I said, नहीं बैठिए. I offered her tea, etc. And then she burst out crying. She says, the first time my child has been a difficult child, that somebody has appreciated me as a mother. What are our principals and teachers doing? We only castigate parents. We don't praise parents.
Yeah.
So an attitudinal change has to come.
Absolutely, sir.
So this educational leadership program that you're doing is marvelous, because this is one of the tools through which attitudinal change will come.
True, sir. Absolutely. This attitude needs to be changed, and also it has to do a lot with communication. How do we actually communicate to the other person? Do we really make the other person feel comfortable, happy? That's more important. Sir, with this, I also know that you've been a professor in mass communication, and you've taught social communication. So, sir, what tips do you think you would like to give to the educators, and especially the school principals, because they also have to do a lot of mass communication. So what tips would you give to them on communication so that this communication becomes effective?
Communication is two-way. I have to listen and then I have to respond.
Yes.
So the principal thinks, usually, most principals, मैं principal हूँ, so you listen to me. Let me share something very interesting to you. I've rarely talked about it. There are at least 20 wives of senior principals who have rung me up कि हमारे husband हमारी बात ही नहीं सुनते.
Okay.
Because the principal 12 hours a day is a principal. वो तो सुनाता है, सुनता नहीं है, तो बीवी का भी नहीं सुनता है. I've had to actually counsel the wives and side by side their husband. So the first rule in communication is listen. We never listen to our children.
Yeah.
Doctors don't listen to the patient. जो मेरे इतने सारे medical issues हुए, it is because my doctor did not hear me. He thought he knew all the answers.
Yeah.
The first rule of communication is listen.
Yeah.
Listen, listen, listen.
True.
And for which, whenever I teach listening skills, there is something I called suspension of disbelief.
Okay.
Which means don't have preconceived idea वो ये कहने आया होगा.
Yeah.
या इससे सिवाय कुछ कह ही नहीं सकता.
Correct.
I'm not a believer in Sai Baba, but I follow all the great religious leaders. वो भी कहते हैं कि अगर तुम well के पास, if you go with your vessel full of water, then what will you fill?
Correct.
So as a principal, when somebody comes to you, they have come with their empty vessel, either of dukh or with thoughts or with excitement. All things happen.
Mm.
Sadness, excitement, as well as sorrow, everything.
Mm.
So first listen.
Yeah.
Then you have to know whether I have to fill in water or I have to give honey
Yeah.
or I have to give quinine.
Mm.
Even bitter quinine helps.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm.
But we don't listen. We already know जो आएगा मैं तो सब जानता हूँ.
Yes, sir. And I think this goes by the principle of seek first to understand, then to be understood. So
Absolutely.
we need to listen to the person first before we go ahead and want to communicate our own things to them. So
Yes.
is there any other thing which you feel that from the principal's desk, when the principal goes ahead and communicates to parents, large number of parents simultaneously, what are those things which she or he needs to take care of while communicating to most of the people? This was more one-to-one communication, but when it is one-to-many communication, then what should be taken care of?
So there we actually come to something we all learn in our English language classes, which is called letter writing. And in letter writing, by and large, we start with I. I, Vikram Dutt, wish to state. Or if you're thanking somebody, I wish to thank you. I have always learned, I had a great English teacher. Her name is Mrs. Prem Krishnan, and before that, Miss Usha Mathur. They're both in their 90s, and this morning we were reminiscing about what they taught us. They taught us every communication starts with you. So when I send a thank you letter, or even when I as principal, I would send letters to parents, it would be you as my parents, you as the parents of this school or of this college are our greatest strength. It has to start with you. In one-to-one communication, we always say them, you, then I. But when we write I. So all written communication must start with you. Even if I send, for instance, if I send a thank you letter, even after an ordinary meeting, I always say things like, your graciousness in offering me a cup of tea when I came to meet you made it so simple for me to express my views to you. तो वो तो फिर पढ़ेगा ना चिट्ठी.
But that's a very important point.
But nobody does it.
Yes, yes. True. I have also not done it, sir. I think it's a new point for me also to understand that, yes, we need to begin our communication with giving more importance to the other person than to start with a I.
With I.
That's a great learning, sir.
See, all the directives from the government about coronavirus start with I.
Okay.
You know, I means I'm speaking from a position of authority.
Authority. Yeah.
तो ये नहीं होना चाहिए.
Right. Okay.
Oh, one other thing, sorry, since you asked this question, something I have lobbied for a lot. In B.Ed classes, they teach the teacher कि खड़े होके बात किया करो. क्लास में बैठो मत. और जब हमें बच्चे को पनिश करना है, stand up. और पनिश करना है, stand up on the bench. So to that little child, standing up is correlated with punishment. Very wrong. I would never teach a class standing. I would always sit.
So you are saying that as a teacher you would sit?
I would always sit.
Okay.
Because I'm at the same level. See, that is another thing. When we stand, we are towering above them. पहले ही वो डरा हुआ है, फिर ऊपर करके देख रहा है. I'm a tall man, 6 feet tall. I must be at their level. So
True. But I'm only talking from a practical point of view. Being a teacher myself, and I'm now a trainer, and as a trainer also, I have always stood up and I have gone ahead and talked and actually moving around, making an eye contact, and then establishing a relation or a connect happens more when you are there all over the place instead of sitting at one place. So
no, all over the place is different. When I'm sitting, Even then I move around and make eye contact. वो अलग बात है. But what is this cardinal rule कि खड़े होके पढ़ाना है? In the mind of the child, खड़ा होना is a punishment. इसको सोचो, गौर करिए. I have talked about it to many educational leaders. उनका दिमाग घूम जाता है. The first punishment we give a child is खड़े हो जाओ. That means not being allowed to sit is a punishment. So we are putting into the minds of the child that the teacher is under a perpetual punishment. वो खड़ा ही रहता है. इसको सोचो, गौर करिए.
Yeah, that's a completely new angle that you have added to
Maybe
it.
all educational, I have discussed with many educational psychologists and nobody has disagreed, either in our country or abroad. कहते हैं हमने कभी सोचा ही नहीं है. The first correlation of a child to punishment is stand up. The next thing that happens which is dangerous, कि टीचर तो पनिश हो रही है खड़ी होके, इसको बहुत गौर से सोचिए. अब मेरे को भी पनिश कर रही है. She is taking it out on me, which is why there is a disconnect between children and teachers.
Can I ask you one question in this case? Instead of saying that the teacher should be sitting, can we go ahead and say that we should not make this kind of a punishment and we should not make children stand as a kind of punishment? What do you say about this? If we reverse that.
I agree with you.
Yeah. Okay.
I agree with you. It's a fresh thinking on the whole issue.
Yeah. No, I do understand. This is something which would definitely work on the student's mind. Sir, you've created a lot of documentaries as well. And 4 of your documentaries have been screened in the Cannes Film Festival. Sir, what was your inspiration behind making documentaries? Because see, you have got a varied field. I mean, you were a basketball coach. You've worked closely with Government of India. You are working for people with disabilities. You have established hospitals and vocational centers and all of those things. And apart from all this, you also a person who is producing films. Documentary films. So, but I just want to know what is the inspiration behind producing this, sir?
Okay, there's one common line through everything in life. That is creativity.
Yeah.
The way I have taught creatively. The way I worked for the government in creating new social sector laws and new systems and policies were all creative. Documentary is also creative. But there is one incident which I would like to share. You know, there's always one incident that makes a marked difference. I was always very fond of writing, making films, etc. When I went to America for my treatment after my spinal injury, जो doctors round पे आते हैं, there was a gentleman who was almost 40, but he was an intern.
Okay.
So one day I asked him, "You're too old to be an intern. Why did you start medicine so late?" So he said, "You know, my father wanted me to be an attorney." अमेरिका में वकीलों को attorney कहते हैं. So I am a PhD in legal studies from Harvard. I was a top class attorney, but I always wanted to be a doctor. So when my father died 10 years ago, I gave up my practice and I enrolled as a medical student. So the message he gave was follow your heart. So when I came back from America, I said, और कुछ करूँ ना करूँगा, but I must make films. And some of us, I believe, are born with some talent. You're born with the talent of being an outstanding teacher. Somewhere I feel I am born with the talent of being a communicator. So I said, why should I not communicate about disability through films? So my first films were all actually on disability and inclusiveness. And seeing my work, Discovery Channel picked me up to make these other films also, which went to Cannes. So the common line is creativity. How to communicate a message in a way that the other person will receive it.
Correct. Right. So, sir, now that we are again talking about disabilities, I just wanted to know that do you think there are some of those special things which you have done for the children of disabilities, which gives you a lot of satisfaction on you? I know that you were the person who started talking about jobs for disabled people, and that was way back in 1990s. So, what's about that, sir?
Well, I feel very elated that God gave me all these opportunities. Maybe I wouldn't have looked at disability field. I would have looked only at the underprivileged field if I had not been disabled myself. So the things that give me great pleasure is an understanding, for instance, the difference between difficulty in learning, which we call mental retardation, or slow in mental development. Mental illness is like jaundice or cholera or smallpox, but सब कहते हैं पागल है. So they have to be given a chance to do well in life.
Yeah.
And today they are doing very well in life. Some of my students are working in good jobs. Many of them are excellent in computer. So they all hold down excellent jobs. This gives me a lot of satisfaction.
Yeah.
And the other thing that gives me a lot of satisfaction is, since I did a lot of work in child rape counseling, which is not something I talk about very much, but a little girl who's continually sexually assaulted, her privacy is invaded. She's not respected as an individual. They start hating men.
Yeah.
They start hating people of the opposite gender.
Yeah.
Sometimes they are young boys who are sexually assaulted homosexually.
Correct.
And so they start hating people. When these people, after counseling, after giving them and creating opportunities for them,
Yeah.
they opt.
Yes.
Opt is the critical word.
Yeah.
They opt for marriage.
Yes.
They
Yeah.
opt for family life. They become happy parents.
Yeah.
That is the greatest satisfaction.
Absolutely, and I think, sir, these are actual milestones. In fact, these are the actual achievements, I would say, wherein some people, some students, they've been able to settle themselves very well with good jobs. Some people who have had very disturbed childhood are now well settled with their families because of the right kind of counseling. That this is a huge work, sir. It's a huge work towards society. So,
But comes from our schools. It's because of good school leaders like you that many of these children get referred.
Yes. So
The issue is
important. Yes.
the issue is to refer them at the correct time.
Correct. Absolutely. Absolutely. Right.
Every teacher is not supposed to be a counselor. Every teacher is not supposed to be a doctor. Every teacher is not supposed to be a cognitive skills specialist.
Correct.
Every teacher is supposed to be a human with a heart and compassion and understanding.
Lovely.
And such a teacher will grow into a principal. And when we have that, we have educational leadership.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. Sir, if I ask you that if you have to describe yourself in just one sentence, what would it be?
I always call myself an eccentric genius. Eccentric तो हूँ, कहीं कहीं भगवान ने IQ भी बहुत हाई दिया तो थोड़ा बहुत जीनियस भी हूँ, but eccentric, an eccentric genius.
An eccentric genius.
Absolutely.
Okay, okay, that's lovely, sir.
By God's grace, my IQ is also at the Mensa level.
Okay, what's the?
But eccentric तो हूँ. If I had stayed with the government, I would have retired with very high position. If I had accepted many of the honors that the government gave me, I would have been more decorated than most of my fellow contemporaries. If I had stayed with business, I would have made probably more money than many of my friends. So सब कहते हैं तू पागल है. मैं कहता हूँ पागल नहीं हूँ, eccentric हूँ. That
You've
is the difference.
opted that life, sir. You've opted it, and I think it's so important to do that because you're bringing in difference in people's life. That's more important than to get decorated, I believe, and that's what you have chosen. So, sir, my last question to you: what is your mantra in life?
If we talk about mantra,
Hmm.
then it is very important. On World Mental Health Day,
Hmm.
a university invited me as the principal speaker to their psychology classes.
Hmm.
They were undergraduate, graduate, postgraduate, and PhD students.
Hmm.
So I have a question, which is not a very nice question.
Hmm.
When we get up in the morning, what do? We go to the bathroom.
Hmm.
We go through our daily ablutions.
Hmm.
What is the ablution? That means we clean our body of all the waste material.
Yeah.
Do we clean our mind of all the, well, we can't use that
Yes.
unparliamentary word, though I do it in my lectures.
Yeah.
There's so much of that we hear every day throughout the day. Do we ever clean that from our mind? So the mantra is mantra, meditation.
Yeah. Okay.
So the mantra in life is meditation.
Okay.
When we meditate, a lot of all the nonsense
Hmm.
goes away,
Yes.
and there is inner peace and calm.
Okay.
A lot of physical pain goes away.
Yes.
Not that the pain is not there.
Hmm.
Physically it is there, but the mental capacity to withhold pain
Yeah.
increases so much
Yes.
that you feel calm. So the mantra is meditation.
That's a powerful thing, sir. In fact, that's the ultimate of everything. When if you are able to meditate, and then if you are able to get onto that mental peace, that means that you've got everything in the world. You don't desire anything more after that. Sir, it was absolutely lovely and wonderful talking to you. Got to know a lot of things, and you have given some food for thought, which I'm definitely going to be thinking further. Thank you so much for all your time, and it was a pleasure, sir, to have you here in this talk series.
Thank you so much, Rupam.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, friends, you heard Dr. Vikram Dutt talk about life, communication, inclusive society, cognitive skills development, communication, educational leadership, and so much more. I hope you're going to be taking back some key insights from this talk. Stay tuned, as I'm going to be back with another education expert. Keep watching Leadership Talks.